Oh, I forgot the loading bar. 1.
Hi, my name is
Looks like we're live.
Yeah, we're live. My name is Brittany S. Wheeler, and welcome to The Vagrancy's Blossoming. This is a brand new play, a really beautiful work by Weston, a long time coming, and it was directed by Hannah Wolf. So I'm here to just ask a bunch of questions and listen to the fabulous artists who contributed to this project. So I think I'm going to ask my very first question to the playwright. So what was challenging about bringing this script to life? How long have you been writing this thing?
So I've been working on this since September of 2020, nice. Which is when all the playwrights in the writers group started, September of last year. Although it's an idea that I've sort of been thinking about for a few years before that. But yeah, I've been working on it since then. And the challenge was that I ended up sort of writing it, in order, starting at the beginning and sort of working the way to the end. But, the nature of the play is it is like a little puzzle box where it all, it needs to, the two parts of it need to kind of come together at the end. So part of the challenge was trying to figure it out as I went along. And I did some outlining beforehand, but trying to kind of find the shape of it and find the way that it would come together as I was writing. And a lot of the challenge was in kind of getting that first draft through, and then I was able to go, okay, this is kind of the shape of this is what it is, and now I can go back and make things fit together and make it kind of have the shape that it needs to have.
I love it. Anna, how was it directing a piece like this?
It was fantastic. I mean, it was like wonderful to work with Weston and with these really talented actors. I think there's something really interesting about how the Vagrancy sets up this process in general, where you read part of the play before the playwright. I guess in our experience, like Weston didn't really know where it was going or had a sense of where it was going, but we were reading it in sections. And we had actors involved from the beginning. And so Weston was getting a huge amount of feedback and notes while still carving out what the play is. And so I think it's a fun process to be in, but I think there's a lot of pressure on the playwright because there's so many voices in the playwright's ear throughout the whole thing. But I really enjoyed, working with Weston for the past 6 months and working with these actors for the past 6 months and kind of being able to then weave the whole thing together as we recorded it. It's really fun.
How did you guys figure out how to do the backgrounds and the sound and all that good stuff? How long did that take you guys to kind of try and organize?
Well, we had the good fortune of our playwright is also an editor. Yeah. So Weston and I put together a pretty bonkers filming schedule and breakdown of the scenes and knowing who's supposed to be where and when and sounds and that sort of thing. But because it is his story and he was in all of the rehearsals, then he was able to take everything and edit it in that way. And then he and I went back and forth a little bit this week in terms of notes.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, Hannah and I had a lot of conversations about what the feel of the piece should be and kind of the way that we wanted to use music, the way that we wanted to use additional imagery, things like that. And then, yeah, the fun of it for me was in the edit, I both got to have all of the kind of, control freak ness that I wanted, but also was able to experiment, and like not go into it knowing exactly what it should be. Sure. And pulling some different music and pulling some different footage and going like, okay, this is the strange Glacier time crossover moment. Like, let's try some stuff. Let's experiment with different things in the edit. And I was actually able to do, in a way, some writing in the editing process of figuring out what worked best.
Oh, that's really cool.
Weston also made cuts in the editing process. Like, it was another pass of the script.
Wow.
So it informed the writing.
Sure, I bet. So we have a couple actors here. Can you guys introduce yourselves and your characters?
I'm Randolph Thompson. I was reading who's originally called Banyan and Charlie and Joshua. Yeah.
Awesome.
And I'm Kathy Diane Tomlin, and I played Cypress and the librarian. And you may have also heard me as the train operator.
Yeah, that was great. That was awesome. Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much, you guys, for being here. So why, I guess this is for Weston again. Why did you decide to tell the story through the female gaze? What made you choose Helen as the kind of the catalyst of the play?
It's a great question. Yeah, I think I was really interested in, there's a line in the play where Liza, the daughter, kind of questions, the choice of the future library to choose writers that are well known or have an established following, and and asks about getting other voices in. And I was thinking a lot about what it would mean to try and preserve voices that aren't getting preserved to the degree that they should be, and the voices that we choose to preserve and the ones that that don't get heard. And I think the idea of starting with Terry as as a white male writer who is maybe is sort of already part of a canon of some kind, and then for him to divert that story to someone else, to his mother, felt like an interesting choice.
Yeah, it was really beautiful. For her to be able, she's such a great actress. I'm a big fan of hers anyway, but it was just so beautiful to be able to really feel all of the things that she was feeling, and to really be in the same kerfluffle she found herself in. And I remember asking myself multiple times, what would I have done had I been privy to that information? And how would I have reacted? And would I have done the same thing? And I think that's just the beauty of the entire piece. It's so, you can so put yourself in there in those situations where you're really trying to understand the world around you, but you still want to respect those that came before you and those that are going to come after you. And I love the idea of that, and just making sure that there's an actual world for everybody that when we're gone. And I think that's you don't see that a lot in a lot of plays. Everybody kind of deals with the now, but I think it's beautiful that you were dealing with the future as well. Let me see. So for everybody, which character did you, I guess, identify with the most? Curious. Yeah, it's hard, right? I found a little bit of myself in everybody. I found,
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely how I feel as a playwright. You have to kind of fracture yourself into all of these different bits. They all say things at different times that I feel.
Randolph, what about you?
I was trying to think, because I think as an actor, obviously, or for me, I'll speak for myself. I try to fall in love with my own characters, and so I definitely saw the play, or saw the world that Weston created in the future through Charlie's eyes. And I really loved him. I loved his curiosity and kind of fumbling into situations a little bit, and not, he didn't seem like a bad guy. He seemed like he was just trying to figure stuff out, that he didn't meet new people and see new things that he hadn't seen before. But yeah, I guess I would say Charlie. I think it feels dumb as an actor to say like my guy, but
I don't know.
I did just really I loved all of his stuff.
That's great. Kathy?
I think for me, I sort of fell in love with both Cypress and the librarian because they're in completely different places, and it, there's this teller who is giving Alder a trial, and learning to work through Weston's language, in those scenes, and because it's a completely different, I guess, nuance to the language than what we have in the present, and then to jump forward into another country and do another accent.
Yeah, that's always fun.
and be the librarian, the keeper of the knowledge, so to speak, except, the keeper of the knowledge who didn't know she had the knowledge, so.
Which I think is pretty interesting as well, is, how many of us have had those moments where we've, like, I guess it would be Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz, like you've had courage the whole time,
Yeah, exactly.
I think it's a beautiful part of the story, is that she, had it all along, and, so I think that's pretty cool. Hannah, what about you?
Yeah, I think I connect with all of the characters, and I think, except for maybe Terry, but in a way, I actually connect with him too, in terms of like going through the artistic struggle, and like how do you create a thing when there's a deadline? How do you create a thing when like you don't know who the audience is going to be? Like I was listening to those lines today and thinking about that. But I think, what Weston does really well is like write characters who are experiencing two feelings at the same time, or have these conflicting goals. And so when I think about when I think about Helen and wanting to share, wanting to release the secret that she's had, but also wanting to control how she's seen, like I really relate to that. When I think about Liza being really concerned about future generations and not knowing how to contribute and feeling powerless under that, so wanting to take big actions, like I really relate to that. I relate to Rosa and like, how do you experience the world but also stay safe? And Alder, the opposite of like, how do you stay safe but also like stay small in that way, and just all of these characters having the back and forth are things that I really relate to. So all of them.
Oh, that's amazing. Let me see here. I suppose I should ask for our two actors that are present, how was it doing some of those scenes? I know for myself, it's been a very interesting process and having to act on Zoom, but try to still have a meaningful scene and still be present. How were you guys able to do that? What was your process in order to get yourself there?
I think for me, it felt relatively simple because, I mean, we think of Zoom as this sort of foreign medium, and but you're looking into the other actor's eyes essentially, and even though like any other reading, you're reading the script, and that's in front of you as well, because you can look directly at the other actors that you're working with. It feels like the same process that we would kind of use if we were in person. We just don't have to, I guess we have to worry a little bit about, which direction we might look in, so that kind of looks like we're looking at the person, so you're not looking off in the wrong direction or something, but that's up to Hannah to make sure that we were looking in the right place. But it felt very natural. So.
Oh, that's great. Randall?
I found it challenging. I think I am somebody who responds. I respond a lot to rooms. I respond a lot to like being able to be physical and being able to be present with somebody. And I just have a harder time reading people over Zoom. I don't know. I think it's me. I don't. It is a bigger mountain to climb for me. It felt more akin to film work where you're shooting coverage and your coverage and you don't have somebody, you have an eye line or something. And so I felt like I was having to kind of not split focus, but like kind of be more like watching myself than I am accustomed to doing with theater and theater pieces. And it just to be 100% honest, just like made me so anxious to be back in a room again and in a rehearsal process. Like this was so it was truly amazing. I mean, I've done several, as we all have, I'm sure, done several Zoom readings, and I just everybody who was involved with this was just so, like, all the other actors were so good, and Hannah and Weston were so great to work with, and it was just like such a great group that I just was dying to be in a room with them. It made me like kind of sad at the same time. But all that being said, everybody was super easy, and format aside, the process itself was so like it felt like a gift in the middle of all of this, of like the work, the written word was so good. And it was like, I've been reading a bunch of commercial scripts and things like that. So it was like, oh, someone spent time on this, and it has like a lot of thought behind it. And yeah, it was just like, it was, so it was definitely both. There was a lot of challenge to the process, but like solely because of the medium, not because of the people. Right. Yeah.
Interesting. I found that too, as an actor, that I was really missing the rehearsal space and just being with people.
Yeah.
And just like you said, playing off of someone else's energy. And it's different. It's just different. But it is exciting that we may be able to come back, to it. Let me see.
I'll throw into that really quickly that it was really important to Hannah from the get-go that the rehearsal process really felt like a workshop, like a rehearsal process, and not like, oh, we're just here to like film our stuff and get it in the can and go. That we had time to talk about things and to like try adjustments to things, and have that organic feel, that collaborative feel, like being in a rehearsal process. And that it was both, I think, for me, really fantastic for the process, and also made us all just miss being in the real room even more.
Yeah, and I'm sure it certainly, doing it that way added so much weight that it was to the piece itself and the performances. And I was gripped because I wanted to know, what did you do, Helen? What did you do? So Weston, what inspired you to write a piece like this in the middle of a pandemic?
Yeah, it's funny because I feel like a lot of creative people got asked during the pandemic, do you think your work is changing, or do you feel like you're responding to the pandemic? And my instinct was always sort of to say no, like I'm just thinking, I'm working on the things I'm working on. But then looking back, I think this piece really is resonant with the pandemic and with like worries about the future. I was thinking about how around the beginning of the pandemic was a time that all of us, it was a time when the future on many time scales was very uncertain. We were not sure what was going to happen in the next few months. We were not sure about the outcome of the election and what, the next 5 or 10 years was going to look like. I personally, as like a person early in my career, was not sure what was going to happen for me. And then we don't know about the future of of humanity. And it just felt like kind of on every scale, the future was incredibly uncertain. And I think that was very felt in a lot of the communities that I'm part of. And, I think I was feeling that. And then this concept of the future library, which is a real piece of public art. It is currently happening.
Get out of here.
It is, yes, credit to the artist Katie Patterson, who came up with this incredibly evocative and poetic concept. So it started in 2014. I found out about it in 2015 because the second writer that was chosen, David Mitchell, is a favorite of mine. And so I heard about it when he got chosen for it and got immediately interested in this idea. And it seemed just so beautiful and poetic and kind of inherently theatrical, and has kind of been kicking around in my head for the last 6 or 7 years. And so the kind of confluence of the pandemic and worry about the future, and then the vagrancy, blossoming theme of history repeats itself, kind of created this perfect storm of, it felt like it's time to write something about the future library.
So this may be a silly question, but why the Glacier? Why is it in Norway, this particular library? That's the real one, I suppose. Is that really in Norway?
The library is in Norway, yeah. So in reality, they are growing a forest of trees that are just saplings now, but are going to grow over the next 100 years. And then I believe in real life it will not get forgotten, and they will print the books, and they will, there will be a gathering of the descendants. But so that is happening. The imagery of the glacier is not connected to that, but was just something that kind of came out to me. I think the idea of the library is to get people thinking on longer timescales than just your own life, to get people thinking in terms of deeper time and thinking about, generations that are more than just the next generation ahead, which is something that I was really interested in with this play as well. And to me, the feeling of the glacier and the way that it messes with your head and makes you kind of see this longer version of time was really connected to that.
Yeah. And it also just harkens back to what's going on with the planet itself now. And, we're kind of running out of them, you know what I mean? And it makes you think about what it is that you're doing on a daily basis to kind of help that situation, or, you know what I mean, or hinder the situation. So I love that as well, that aspect of it. Anybody have anything that they'd like to say? We're going on to almost 8. Anybody?
I'll just add in terms of the glacier too, like something that Weston and I talked a lot about is that, we think about time as a linear thing, as a linear line, but when you actually look at ice cores, it's one stacked on top of the other, and so that's how you're telling time horizontally. And so one thing that we kept talking about is like, how do you have this story be glacial time, and think about like how do you actually move through time, drilling down into it rather than thinking about jumping ahead. And so that's just something that I think about a lot with plays, because I think a lot about time on stage. But it relates to the glacier and the ice.
Hannah, why did you want to be involved?
So Caitlin of the Vagrancy asked me if I wanted to work with Weston, I guess in like September of last year, and just sent me the blurb of the play. And I was really excited to see a post-apocalypse play that is not Mad Max, where it's not like the world is over. We experience a lot of future content in our world right now that feels a little hopeless. And so there was something about what Weston was playing with, and this idea of the idea that the world rebuilds itself was what brought me in at the very beginning. I got really excited about that.
Yeah. Randolph and Kathy, what about you?
I had worked with Hannah before, and I was excited to work with her again. And I love working on new material. It's so exciting to me. And I've been a part of a number of processes, not like this one, but where the writer is still constructing as we go. And I always find that to be just
Fun.
selfishly exciting. Yeah.
Yeah,
So I
that's
was
fair.
just stoked to be a part of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Kathy?
I'm actually a member of the Vagrancy Company. So this is actually my fourth blossoming festival that I've been involved with. And it's amazing to watch these plays grow from the workshop phase to something that could be potentially staged. So I think that's what I love about this whole process.
That's amazing. Well, I think that's it for me. Thank you guys so much for being here. And thank you, those of you that are chatting at home, for being with us. And see you soon.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye all.
Bye, guys.